Hey y'all, and welcome back to another episode of There's Danger Here. I'm Leilani, and this week we are going to go into Florida for our case. So let's just jump right into it, shall we? Wade Stephen Wilson was born on May 20th, 1994, by a young set of parents and was quickly adopted to parents Steve and Candace Wilson. Wade grew up in Tallahassee, Florida. Peers report Wade as troubled, experimenting with drugs, getting involved in petty crimes pretty early on. By 2012, the 18-year-old Wade was arrested for burglary, assault, and a firearms charge. By November of 2013, Wade was sentenced to 10 months for burglary and grand theft. By 2015, he was back in front of the grand jury, this time for sexual assault and kidnapping, but somehow managed to get acquitted. Unfortunately, Wade turned into a snitch in 2016 when he testified against his cellie, Brian Winchester, in a murder-for-hire plot. In 2017, again he was back in prison for stealing a firearm, making him also a felon in possession of a firearm. He was released by mid-year of 2018, and this is where the bulk of his information starts to come out. Many documentaries detail Wade. You might know him as the Deadpool killer because of his name, Wade Wilson. He's also on several other documentaries. So most of these start when he's already got a criminal record. First, let's talk about the Netflix documentary. We learn of a woman named Kelly who tried online dating at 26, where she met a man named Steven, a 24-year-old personal trainer, in September of 2018. And of course, Steven isn't Steven, come on now. Anywho, the two met up and were inseparable after that. Steven said he was adopted and had loving parents, but that he had been in contact with his biological father as well, also named Steven. Kelly's parents and animals all love Steven. Weeks later, he made it official, and within a month, the two were living together. I can't dog on that part. My partner and I moved in quickly, too. Quickly for a relationship. But when you're an adult, I think many factors play into moving in, and I can't say there wasn't an element of convenience that played into the decision. So I can see how this could work. Yes, there are many other factors, but this case isn't about me. Okay, moving on. Back to Kelly. So Kelly reported Steven cooked and cleaned a lot, something that really helped in the relationship. But in November, Kelly found Wade first and gigantic red flag. This is when she couldn't find her laptop. Eventually, after searching and searching, Steven kind of admitted, well, he pawned it because he needed the money. Kelly was rightfully pissed off, and she immediately filed a police report. And when police found her laptop a few miles away, the pawnshop verified the seller of the laptop. It was Wade Stephen Wilson. It was then that Kelly learned that information. Still, she stayed with Wade. On December 5th, another friend lost her job and ended up coming to crash at Kelly's. She stated one day the trio were talking about mastiffs when Kelly said she knew someone who bred a rare breed of them. Then after work one day, she came home to the puppies in her home. Kelly's friend and Wade had stolen them. Kelly left, and Wade ended up calling her and telling her to three-way a detective, saying that she was the one who actually stole the dogs, and if she didn't, he was going to kill her animals. She believed him, and she did as she was told. The next day, she was dropped off at jail and spent 27 hours in a cell. When she got home, Wade and her friend were gone, along with her handgun. Kelly ended up looking up Wade at this point and found that he was a felon, so she called the police and notified them that he stole her gun, for which a warrant went out for Wade immediately. But Wade supposedly went to Texas and Florida wouldn't extradite. On December 30th, Kelly gets a phone call from Wade. He's apologetic, so she ended up paying for his bus ticket and brought him home. As he's en route, however, she called the police and notified them, asking if they would get him if he was back in the state, and they said yes. Kelly even picked up Wade and brought him home, having him arrested outside of her house. But Wade is a smooth talker, and after 4 days, Kelly feels bad and bailed him out. Still, she does keep her nerve and lets him know that he can no longer stay at her house anymore. Wade said he has a friend he can stay with that will help him get into a rehab. Now, who is this friend? Well, first, let's rewind a little back to 2018 when Wade matched with Courtney, who was living in Lockahachie, Florida at the time. The two met up at a local park, and Courtney said there was a lot of laughing. They started dating around September of 2018. But Courtney worked a lot, so much of their relationship was texting. Again, if you're checking the timeline, this is when Wade is actually living with Kelly. Courtney even noticed Kelly commenting on his social media and is under the name Kay in his phone. But Wade told Courtney that Kelly was simply his roommate. Then Courtney ended up moving to the Keys and was staying with her sister while she settled in. Okay, back to the original timeline when Wade gets out of jail and Kelly said he couldn't stay with her anymore. Wade wanted Kelly to drive him 3 hours away to the Keys. And Kelly said no, but of course, here comes the force. When Kelly attempted to get away, he abducted her. He beat her and sexually assaulted her, then sold her phone while she was forced to stay in the car. When they got to the Keys, they met up with Courtney, and Wade left, and Kelly drove home immediately filing a police report, unfortunately, with Detective Potter. This detective sounds like a good old boy. He didn't care about Kelly. That much is made clear through the lack of investigation, and if you think that I'm just doing slander, well, you should really watch the documentary and how he talks with her versus how he talks with the actual aggressor. When he connects with Wade, which he does, Wade says it was consensual, and it seems as though Detective Potter leads him to say what he wants so that he can just close the case. Even though there are physical marks on her body, she had proof, and the detective just didn't seem to care or didn't want to do his job. Again, if you watch the documentary on it and you aren't as disgusted as I was, I'd be really surprised. But because of the lack of investigation, it let Wade open to what has come. So yes, I kind of also blame Detective Potter for the upcoming deaths. In March of 2019, Courtney got kicked out of her sister's house because they were arguing, and while she had a place to go, Wade couldn't stay where she was going. And Wade reported that was fine. He had a friend he could stay with. And the two continued texting for a while until he essentially ghosted her. Luckily for her, it sounds like a blessing in disguise. At the time, Wade had began working at a carnival in Inverness, Florida, where he meets a coworker named Chris who is living in his RV while he worked there. Within 2 days of meeting, Wade said he needed a place to stay and Chris offered up his couch. But instead, Wade ended up in the bed. They are intimate within a week, and 2 weeks later, were in a quote-unquote official relationship. After the fair was complete, the two went to Chris's mom's house and parked in the driveway while kind of planning their next moves. One night, they decided to do drugs, and Wade tripped out, telling Chris that someone was trying to get in. He eventually grabbed a knife and ended up cutting Chris in the chest, throwing him into his closet, which caused more cuts when some glass broke. Chris thought it was part of a bad drug use and ended up accepting his apology when he came back the next day. On April 15th, the two moved back to the Keys because Wade found a job, but soon after, Chris realized Wade was calling him a cousin and kicked him out of the RV. Then Chris packed up and left for home, so he too managed to dodge a very big bullet here. On June 30th, 2019, Mila Montanez and Wade get together. From the beginning of the relationship, purportedly he was physically abusive to her. Multiple friends came forward saying that they saw bruises on her on various occasions. On October 6, 2019, Mila and Wade went to the Buddha to party. Wade went to get some drugs and wanted Mila to go with, but she declined, and Wade left her in her own car without her. On October 7th, Mila reported waking up to thousands of phone calls from him. Wade was asking where she was, and Mila decided not to tell him. Instead, she agreed to meet Wade at the spa she owned in Fort Myers. Wade arrived, but was in someone else's car and was shirtless and shoeless, and he ended up frantically trying to pull Mila into the car. But a friend of Mila's was there and called 911. Mila managed to dodge him, and Wade punched her multiple times before taking off. At 11:16 a.m., Wade was spotted at Joe's Crab Shack, parked. He refused to get out of the vehicle even when police made contact. At first, they follow Wade when he takes off, but they give up pursuit for safety because, quote, it's only a battery charge, end quote. He heads to Mateo Graphics, where Josh Lukic calls 911 when Wade arrives. See, he knows Wade, but not well, and on the 911 report, he said that Wade said he hurt someone and is running, and Josh didn't feel safe with him there, as he appears fairly unstable. In the meantime, while police are coming to Mateo's, Wade leaves on foot. Police see the car left behind and find that it's registered to Christine Melton. Naturally, they attempt to locate Christine. Calling her emergency contact, Stephanie. Stephanie tells police that Christine had met a man the night before at the Buddha, and the two shut down the club, then continued to party at Christine's house. But Stephanie had to leave about 20 minutes after they got there because she needed to take her son to school the next day. So Cape Coral police went out to Christine's house, but there was no response. They ended up breaching the door and found Christine wrapped up in a carpet, deceased. It was later determined that she had been strangled to death. As this investigation now takes an even more serious turn, all the police departments seem to be getting on the same page when the car is connected to Mila's domestic violence incident in a different jurisdiction. Then another call comes in to Cape Coral Police Department. There was a found purse that was brought into an elementary school who notified the police. The purse belonged to Dianne Ruiz, and when police get to her house, Diane's son reported that she should be at work. After finding this information out, Diane's fiancé called in a missing persons report. He stated she left to walk to work that morning, never made it, her purse was found, and her cell phone was missing, but nobody could get a hold of her. At 8 p.m., Wade Wilson's biological father, Stephen, called police and gave a location of where Wade was staying, which ended up just being down the road from Mateo's Graphics. He had broken into a vacant home and called his father, confessing to 2 murders. Wade stated that he killed them with his bare hands, choking them both to death. Wade's father lied and said that he'd get him an Uber out of there, but in order to do that, he needed the actual address. Now that he had all the information, he needed to get help to get him caught, so that's why he called the police. Wade's father called Kelly after calling police and let her know that Wade was arrested. He had murdered 2 women. On October 8th, Diane's phone records are connected to Mila. Wade had taken her phone and called Mila multiple times from it before turning it off. Video surveillance at the elementary school also showed Christine's car throwing out Diane's purse. 2 days later, Stephen talks to Wade while he's in jail. He tells Wade that he broke his heart, and of course he was the one that had to turn him in, but he had to do it because otherwise he knew Wade would have continued his rampage, which Wade readily agreed to. He said he definitely would have kept killing people. That Wade needed to tell police where Dianne was for closure. They needed to do it for her son. In the meantime, officers were continuing to search for Dianne in the Pine Islands based on Diane's phone records before Wade had turned it off. As 2 officers stopped to take a break and eat lunch, they noted buzzards flying ahead and followed to where they landed, and unfortunately, this is where they found Dianne. After Wade finished his visit, he told police that he wanted to talk to a detective. He wanted to trade a meal for a body. He told the detective he convinced Dianne to get in the car, offering her a ride to work, but instead, he passed her work, choked her, and threw her out of the car. After realizing she was still alive, he ran her over multiple times. Wade then went on to confess to the killing of Christine. What he didn't confess to was that he had sexually assaulted Dianne after he killed her. Fortunately, and I know that sounds terrible that I said the word fortunately, that means that he left behind conclusive DNA in both cases, which helps with a conviction later. Because of his looks, the media was huge in this case. Hundreds of women talk to Wade while he's in jail. While he's there, he also decides he's going to tattoo up his face, adding swastikas among other things. In November, he was officially indicted for the murder of 2 women. And still, he gains this huge following of women that are obsessed with him, even though he's clearly got issues. On June 10th, 2024, trial finally begins for both murders. Stephen testified against Wade, along with other family members giving their information. The jury quickly convicts Wade on both counts of first-degree murder. In his sentencing, it was completed when he received the death penalty for both counts of first-degree murder. In Florida, the death penalty can be sentenced even if the jury doesn't come to a unanimous decision in the matter. In Wade's case, the jury voted 9-3 for Christine's murder and 10-2 in support for Dianne's death. The change in the law occurred in 2023, so after both murders occurred but before his trial. And of course, defense has a bunch of appeals, and we'll see if that ends up affecting anything. I only say that because historically, when people are convicted of crimes years later, they must be sentenced based on the laws and sentencing at the time of the original offense. And so at the time of his original offense, he would have needed a unanimous decision for death to be sentenced. But as of right now, everything is upheld. The defense had this to say about his media coverage and the women who flocked to him. Quote, "The defendant will pay the ultimate price, the highest penalty the criminal justice system has, because of the unthinkable things he did to these 2 victims. It has not gone unnoticed that this defendant is being idolized by some people who are somehow proud to mix their names with his, through public comments, fundraising for him, or holding him up to be some sort of positive representation of a man, ignoring that he is nothing more than a vicious killer, and about the most popular poor representation of a man that there could ever be. His victims physically suffered tremendously due to his decision to kill, due to his horrific actions. They fought back. They fought for their lives. This defendant is no idol. It is disgraceful and pitiful to hold him up as such. This defendant is now nothing more than a number in the Florida Department of Corrections, awaiting death." End quote. And this was from State Attorney Fox, which I have to wholeheartedly agree with. I'm sorry, but you can't idolize somebody like him. Okay, now, to all those out there listening, be careful. It's a dangerous world we live in.